Today, The Great Gatsby, The Catcher in the Rye, The Grapes of Wrath, as was just mentioned, To Kill a Mockingbird, Ulysses, Beloved by Toni Morrison, 1984, Lolita, The Handmaid's Tale, Bless Me Ultima by Rodolfo Anaya. If these books seems like books that you read in high school or here at UC Irvine, indeed they are, some of them. But apparently, everybody's got something against somebody. So all these books have required the defense, a defense by administrators and bookstore owners and librarians to keep them on the shelves at public libraries, private libraries, at bookstores. Weetzie Bat by Francisca Leah Block, Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling, and The Lovely Bones by our very own Alice Sebold. Now, who's the number one constituency for trying to prevent books from getting into the hands of children? Anybody want to take a guess? That's right, their parents. Color me shocked. The parents are often the ones who try to prevent a student in a classroom from reading a book or try to interfere with a teacher's intellectual and pedagogical rights to assign work. And you can read more all about this and the definition of those three categories: censored, banned, and challenged, at the terrific site maintained by the American Library Association. When I was about 16 years old, I went to the library and I read a book by Gore Vidal. And the name of that book was Myra Breckenridge. Myra Breckenridge was on the shelf. I liked it very much. It was a very naughty book by a very important writer. And then I learned that there was a sequel to that book, and that the title of the book was Myron. So I went to the card catalog. This is back in the day, friends, when we had a card catalog and a Dewey Decimal System. And there was the listing of the book Myron by Gore Vidal. I couldn't find it on the shelf, so I went and asked the librarian. And the librarian explained to me that in the city of Downey, California, where I grew up, such books that were deemed problematic in some way were kept behind the desk and not on the shelf. She asked me how old I was, the librarian, and sort of sized me up, went in the back, and got me the book. So there's a little problem there, but that problem was overcome by a brave librarian who was willing to perhaps bend or break some very foolish rules and let a curious young reader read the book. One of my favorite books of all time is by Sylvia Plath, the poet and novelist. I'm going to read just the beginning of what I think is still, many, many years later, a remarkable and terrific book which has angered many parents, apparently, and other folks. It's called The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and it begins as follows. And can I say what a thrill it is just to read out in public? It's a great thing to hear the human voice reading from fiction, nonfiction, poetry, whatever. It was a queer, sultry summer, the summer they electrocuted the Rosenbergs, and I didn't know what I was doing in New York. I'm stupid about executions. The idea of being electrocuted makes me sick, and that's all there was to read about in the papers. Goggle-eyed headlines staring up at me on every street corner, and at the fusty, peanut-smelling mouth of every subway. It had nothing to do with me, but I couldn't help wondering what it would be like being burned alive all along your nerves. I thought it must be the worst thing in the world. New York was bad enough. By 9 in the morning, the fake country wet freshness that somehow seeped in overnight evaporated like the tail end of a sweet dream. Mirage gray at the bottom of their granite canyons, the hot streets wavered in the sun, the car tops sizzled and glittered, and the dry, cindery dust blew into my eyes and down my throat. I kept hearing about the Rosenbergs over the radio and at the office till I couldn't get them out of my mind. It was like the first time I saw a cadaver. For weeks afterwards, the cadaver's head, or what there was left of it, floated up behind my eggs and bacon at breakfast and behind the face of Buddy Willard, who was responsible for my seeing it in the first place. And pretty soon, I felt as though I were carrying that cadaver's head around with me on a string, like some black, noseless balloon stinking of vinegar. That's Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar, which I'm so happy to read as part of our annual celebration of Banned Books Week, the American Library Association's celebration and commemoration